actually to prepare you to do something awesome. So thinking about it from that way, knowing that, you know what, even in a stressful time, like I'm getting amped, my heart's racing, my hands might be a little shaky, my adrenaline's pumping, but that just means I'm getting ready to do this. So as long as I think about it from that standpoint, I can be able to move through those challenges and conquer what I need to conquer.
After you overcome the challenges, how did you feel?
Ecstatic. There's nothing better than overcoming one of your greatest fears or worst worries and coming out of it unscathed. And by unscathed, I mean not hurt. So that feels great.
If you ever received a reward for facing the challenge, would you take it or let life be?
I don't necessarily need the awards. Like, external validations only go so far. I know I can feel good about what I'm doing because of how y'all come to me, how y'all want to come talk to me, how y'all high five me in the hallway, dap me up. Like, if I know I built a good relationship with y'all so you can feel trusting and worthy to come talk to me about your life situations, then I can feel good about my job, and I don't need a trophy to do that.
Would you ever risk your life to not have challenges?
Risk my life to not have challenges? I mean, it's in this day and age, working at a school, I had to risk my job every day. You never know what can happen here. I'm on the crisis team. I'm the one who's out there locking these doors and all that, trying to make sure all y'all safe. So if it came down to it, like, yeah, I'd have to put myself in a risk to make sure y'all safe. Like, I catch a bullet for y'all, straight up. Like, that's my job, is to make sure y'all are safe and y'all protected. So that's what it is.
Where were you born and what was your childhood life?
I grew up on the east side of Detroit, East Outer Drive in Mack Avenue. I grew up, my biological mom passed away when I was a kid, when I was 4 years old. I have a stepmom who actually I just adopted me over the summer. I got her adoption papers as a Mother's Day gift so she could be my legal mother on paper. So I had a pretty good childhood growing up. I was pretty active. East side Detroit, man, sometimes my parents had to kind of put me back into shape to make sure I didn't get into some nonsense, right? But they made sure I stayed on the straight and narrow and supported me, and never forced me to do nothing. That was one thing I was really appreciative from my family, is that they wanted me to be me, like regardless of what that looked like. So they were willing to support me to get to where I'm at.
What is your favorite memory from when you were younger?
Oh man, that's a good question. I remember vividly the first time I went and saw a Batman movie in theaters, and it was one of those things that I'd begged my parents for a long time. Let me go to this movie, let me go to this movie, let me go to this movie, you want to take me to this movie? And they took myself and a friend of mine to go see a Batman movie in theaters, and it was great.
Okay, so, like, recently we were looking up, like, videos about, like, school violence and stuff, like, how we go to school here and, like, try to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, with the Fitzgerald thing about the stabbing and everything, how do you feel about school violence?
I feel like our school does a really good job of trying to make sure things don't escalate to that level. Before I actually got my job here, I did my internship for grad school at Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of those teachers, I know a lot of those staff, I know a lot of those students. And for what happened is a grave tragedy, because there's only so much that sometimes adults can do to predict those things. So that's definitely one of those life lessons that we've taken as a school to make sure to combat by addressing things when they seem small at first, because we don't want them to build or to grow and to lead to a point where someone needs to rash out in a physical means. So it's a scary culture to live in. I never thought that being a school counselor would mean that I would feel like I have to risk my life on a day-to-day basis, because you never know who's going to come up in here and like starts popping off or whatever. But I definitely know that we are doing everything we can to make sure that y'all are the safest we can by making sure our procedures and protocols are put in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course.
What do you think when you come across a challenge?
I usually start with, is this something I have to do? So not every challenge is something we have to do. And so if it's important because it matters for my job or my family, or it's a personal goal of mine, just because it's a challenge, I usually start with that. Is this something I have to do that I feel like I must complete? And if so, what can I do to get to that point? But making sure you know it's something you have to do is really important, because we don't have to meet every challenge if it's not important.
What were you thinking when you first walked into your job on the first day?
Let's see. Well, the first day I walked in, I was here and I saw Ms. Zabo, Mrs. Howery, and they gave me a tour of the building, kind of like Mr. Osmond. But when I got back to this office, I met new people. I met the secretaries, and then Mr. Osmond was here, and him and I are good friends from graduate school. So it was a really cool thing to walk into my new job and already have someone who I know really well. And I was just reflecting, kind of like he said, I was reflecting on the fact that I've worked really hard for the last 5 years putting myself through grad school as a single mom, and it was a really amazing feeling to walk into my own office and to feel good about that. So,
How do you feel about life now?
I think life can be really hard, and sometimes life really sucks. There's all sorts of challenges and problems and issues that we face on a regular basis. But I try really hard to find something good about every day, even if it's something as simple as my son, or I get to sit and talk with a kid and make them feel better. I think that makes it better. So life is really hard, but the job that I have and being able to help other people really helps keep my perspective about life. So
Recently, in the past few months, there's been school violence altercations such as Fitzgerald stabbing and Parkland shooting.
mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about school violence?
Well, I'm an extremely emotional person, and so the fact that children are killing other children always breaks my heart. It always makes me really sad, because that tells me that there's something fundamentally wrong with how we care about our children, not just what we show them, but how we care about them. Almost every shooter has had reported incidents of bullying, exposure to violence, a lack of care, and concern from the people closest to them that should care about them. Something about their life has fallen through the cracks in some way, shape, or form. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so for school violence specifically, it always breaks my heart because I feel like there's something we should be able to do to prevent it. That's a very large systemic issue, but because I can't fix that, I come to work every day with the intention of being the best that I can be for the people who I get to see, who I get to influence. So if that means that I'm caring about the kid that everybody else overlooks to send them the message that somebody does care, then that's what I do. So I try to look at it from that perspective. I may not be able to fix the global problem, but I can influence the kids in my building every single day. And that's kind of how I look at it. I wish that kids weren't killing each other, because it's incredibly sad. But if we can put a little bit more focus and time and effort into the messages we send our adolescents, that they are loved and that they are cared for, despite oftentimes their life circumstances telling them otherwise, I think we go a long way towards improving it.
Thank you.